Hey up and welcome to the Temple of Blair. I'm struggling at the minute because a conversation with Robb Flynn is a conversation that doesn't require an introduction, but I'll have a go, fuck it. Machine Head's relationship with Roadrunner Records stretches all the way back to the early 90s at a really interesting time of the label's history when it's like moving away from thrash and death and moving into more diverse territories, and Machine Head kind of fit the bill for that rescoping and realignment of priorities. So I was really keen to understand Robb's perspective on the label, what with being on the other side of the desk in that relationship. He gave me a lot of unique insights and a lot of things I need to think about when it comes to researching this whole project as a whole and understanding Roadrunner as an entity. I've tried to tidy up the audio a little bit because I'm a little bit echoey, and there's a bit where I call Machine Head an LA band. That's on me because I thought Oakland to LA was like Hillsborough to fucking Sheffield. But you know, I don't care, don't at me. So let's jump into it. 1, 2, fuck shit up.
Thank you very much for taking the time, because it's a weird thing to ask when it's like, do you want to talk about your ex-employer? Yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk about your ex-boss?
Yeah. Yeah. So but we should open up with like the general housekeeping and recent events, because I want to congratulate on becoming the Firestorm, because I've enjoyed the single as a whole. But becoming the Firestorm for me, it just like had a European sensibility to it, which I really enjoyed.
Okay, cool. No, thank you, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I think it was like the way the riffs were constructed, it kind of made me feel a bit Children of Bodom-y. And there was a little black metal feeling there, like a toe was sort of sat in that world. And then it sort of transitions like into the chorus with it felt like mid 2000s metalcore, which is where my ass is planted a lot of the time. So what's happening in Machine Head World then? Is it just kind of like teasing up into the new album in that sense?
Right now the plan is so those 3 songs, along with My Hands Are Empty, are going to end up on the next Machine Head record. And for me, especially with just the pandemic and the way, you know, everything is right now, and not being able to tour, and you know, I mean, some tours are coming back, but it's all been a bit crazy, and I've just been like, I just want to put music out. Like, I don't want to wait for a record. Like, I just want to get music out. You know, a lot of times when you write a record, you know, those songs are 2 years old by the time you put them out sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think especially with the new tools, with the ability to just release stuff digital only, and you know, people are kind of all over there anyway, that's the future, man. And I also know that vinyl production is fucking insane right now, and it's like a 7 to 8 month lead time. So even if I turned in a record today, let's say today's July 6th, like that record probably isn't, the vinyl's not going to be ready until February 6th, which is a fucking long time, man.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I get it. Like, we're in a pandemic, shit's crazy, like just whatever. And so adapt and do something different. You know, like, you can still get music out of the fans. You know, I like it because, you know, I finish a song, you know, I finished Arrows a month ago, 2 months ago. And here it is. It's out. People are enjoying it. People are loving it and feeling it. And to me, that's like what it's all about. You know, this is about feeding the diehard, feeding the head cases, and just keeping it moving from there.
It's also about innovating in times of strife.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm all Spotify or Apple Music anyway. So like, you know, I know people always get mad at me when I say this too, and I'm like, I don't know why you're getting mad at me. Like, I don't buy CDs. Like, I don't buy vinyl. Half my life is on the fucking road. Like, I'm not going to carry a record player and fucking vinyl with me. You know, I was that dude who had that giant CD wallet that was just covered in beer and vodka and Coca-Cola and it was just such a mess. And like, fuck, I love everything being on my phone. I love being able to just open up Spotify or Apple Music, and I've got the history of recorded music at my fingertips, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, how the world's going to move on, because I mean, the digital revolution and how the Spotify thing has kind of affected the album cycle, and how it's affected the consumer's relationship and expectations. it's now come to a head where everyone's innovated so much in the past like 18 months. It's like other seeds are planting to help that move on a bit. So I'm quite excited by that.
Yeah.
Personally. And where it'll go, who knows? But it's good to see people embracing it and just going, we can increase the metabolic rate at which bands can operate. Like Weezer, a full album cycle every year to 18 months. That's not negligible. That's quite important to how we perceive what bands should be doing.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that it's taking different forms.
And the record, there will be, for all the people that do want physical, there will be ultimately, probably at the beginning of next year or the middle of next year, there will be an album. It'll be a full CD. I'm not going to do a CD. I'm actually just going to do a digipack, an eco-friendly, very little plastic digipack. It won't have any bonus stuff, but it'll just be like the full kind of glorious awesomeness of a digipack. We'll have the full vinyl. We've been doing these pretty elaborate vinyl releases that people are really stoked on, like really, really detailed. Like we did the Blackening one. It had, platinum gold, platinum leaf on it, and just really, really premium stuff. And that's what I want to do. Like if we're gonna do physical, to me it needs to be special. It needs to be different. It needs to be something that I don't want to ever put out just a regular jewel box CD again. Like I want it to be something that is a piece of art. Like I'm a total fucking iPhone nerd. Like I'm such an iPhone nerd that I've kept every iPhone box that I have, and there's a reason for it, because to me those little iPhone boxes, they're a little work of art unto themselves. The suction when you pull it up just, it just opens up. It's just perfectly little, all those little details I love, and that's what I want to sell. That's what I want to put out into the world. And if people want to buy that physical stuff, then that's what it's going to be.
That's a perfect segue into the Roadrunner stuff, because this entire thing is about, you're saying about the iPhone boxes, that's a deliberate thing. That's a deliberate feeling that a company is trying to impart to a consumer to establish a relationship and a bit of rapport. And the whole premise of this Roadrunner thing is what they did was not a fucking accident. And their relationship with the consumer in metal and what they did to metal was not an accident. It's all your fault, it turns out. So what happened was, I wanted to do this for a while, similar to, you're not a patient person, you want to put music out there. I've wanted to do like a history of Roadrunner Records for quite a few years, like either in a book form or something like that. And I've done like little bits and shitty things here and there, like started writing it and things like that. And in the research, I keep seeing this dude coming up called Monty Connor, and I'm like, there's somewhere in the infrastructure which this guy is aligned to. This is just like a consumer not knowing jack shit about the industry, just seeing this name come up. And then I pop on YouTube one day and see that you've done an interview with him for No Fucking Regrets. And that's like, for anyone who doesn't know anything about Roadrunner, that's like the perfect starting point. Perfect. Because he was like the beating heart of it from an A&R perspective for 25 fucking years. But then I jumped onto your stream, one of your first Twitch streams. And I think you might have just said, how you all doing or something. I was like, I just saw that video with Monty Connor. I thought it was very good. And I'm doing a thing about Roadrunner. And you were like, cool, man. But then a little message pops up into my inbox. And it's Michelle Kerr, who says, I wouldn't mind seeing that when you finished with it. And I was like, oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
Shit. It's got to be good now. Fuck. And so that started this domino effect. I'm now like,
that's crazy.
80 something hours.
So my podcast over to my Twitch to Michelle Kerr reaching out to you to here we are.
To the fear setting in. I have to deliver it now.
Yeah. But you're just doing a podcast, right? Or are you doing like a documentary or?
Correct. So it started out as a zero.
So what is this? What is this that we're doing?
This is
like for a podcast?
Yes, this is a research vehicle dressed as a podcast.
Okay, gotcha.
I've prepared some questions, but knowing that there's too much to go through, we should just bro down and just talk about Roadrunner.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I saw you sent me the kind of the talking points or whatever. So I'm cool to whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah. So I think I'll try and kick this off before Machine Head, because with Violence, you guys were signed to Mechanic, and there was one person there who's kind of the unsung hero of the Roadrunner story, and that's Holly Lane, because she opened the US office. She was the one there who like was there getting the printers in and getting the computers in, and then she moved on to form Mechanic with Steve Sinclair. So I just wanted to know if you have any memories of.
She opened the Roadrunner office in New York and then left Roadrunner for Mechanic. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, she recruited Monty, and then like 10 days later left.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, I don't say that would have. At that point, I didn't really have a whole lot of contact. I know Steve Sinclair at Mechanics was who I had talked to a handful of times. I do recall Holly Lane, and I remember the name, and I'm sure I talked to her, but I was 20 years old and drunk and on a lot of methamphetamines, and it's just a blur. Like, I don't know. Sure. But I do remember the name, and I remember I'm certain I talked with her. I wasn't really the main guy in Violence, so like I wouldn't have been dealing with the record company for most things. Sure. It makes sense. So I read somewhere that Machine Head itself was formed October 12th, 1991. Does that name ring a bell? Yes. Sweet. We're coming up on our 30th anniversary here. Anything planned? I don't know. I mean, it's the day we just celebrated the Burn My Eyes 25th anniversary and did like a bunch of touring behind it. So, I can't really, it's the day we started with, we didn't even have any song. I mean, I had 3 songs. So I could play those 3 songs, maybe play some of the demos or something. I don't know, but like, just, we're going to celebrate it in some way, it's a pretty big deal, it is a birthday, even if there's nothing if there's nothing physical or tangible to put to it. It still is a birthday, I guess. Yeah, it is. And it's for me more than maybe the band. It's a special day because it was, I'm at a Metallica, Soundgarden, Faith No More, I think Body Count's opening. It's a Day on the Green, which is a big festival. It was back when festivals only had 4 bands. So it was a 4-band festival at the Oakland Coliseum. Mm-hmm. And, I'd been in Violence for, I think 4 years at that point. And things were starting to change, like the thrash scene was really starting to die. And we went from playing tons we were killing it in the Bay Area for good couple of years there to just kind of things were fizzling out. I was 24 at the time, and I was just like, I'm old, like it's over, like it's like my life is like I'm gonna have to get a real job. I just felt so old compared to everything else in the scene, and but I still had new music that I wanted to play, and I had new music that I had things I wanted to say. I had always sang, but I just, at the time prior to that, just didn't have the confidence to sing. And, in Violence, I was the new guy in Violence for the whole time. I joined right before, about a year before Eternal Nightmare came out. And I was the bottom of the totem pole. Yeah. I managed to claw my way above Dean Dell, who was the bass player. And, at some point, I was just like, I just need to do my own thing, man. Like I got ideas. I think I know better than these guys, and I wanted to call the shots. I couldn't call the shots. It was Phil, Perry, and Sean. They called the shots in Violence, and that was it. And that's fine. That was just the way things were established. But I wanted to be the one who called the shots. I wanted the buck to stop with me. I wanted to rise or fall by my own blood, sweat, and tears. I wanted to carve my own path and forge my own destiny. And if it failed, it was on me, and if it succeeded, it was on me. So I was watching Metallica play Black Album stuff, and this was a band that I had seen Metallica opening for Raven to 200 people at the Keystone Berkeley, like not even 5 or 6 years before this. So like, it was just like, oh my God, like never in a million years could I have imagined that this type of super heavy music that was very underground and not even on the radio in the Bay Area where the band was from wouldn't refuse to play them. Like it was just, it was incredible to see. And I was like, I'm gonna start a band called Machine Head, and I'm gonna do this. And that was the moment that I just, changed. I was a side project originally. I stayed in Violence for another 4 months, and then I quit. And then that's all I've done since. Just put all my energy into that.
You've touched on something interesting though, Rob. So you said like thrash was dying. How could you tell that at the time? Because when we speak about Roadrunner and like the infrastructure which it builds around itself, it has to know when things are in vogue or not. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, how are you aware that something's fizzling out? Is it just the frequency of the gigs? Is it there's less tangible revenue?
I mean, no, it's never about like money. Like I'm just going to shows, you know what I mean? And I'm just catching the vibe of stuff and that early scene, like I talk about seeing Metallica opening for Raven to 200 people in Berkeley, like that was first time I ever saw them. Exodus opened. It was fucking life-changing experience. It was, you always hear the old cats talk about seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. That was my Beatles Ed Sullivan moment right there at the Keystone. And I mean, that was the moment I was like, okay, I'm going to start a band. I was with my friend Jim. I was like, we're going to start a band. We're going to play faster than everybody and heavier than everybody. And, we're going to get into the clubs. And we did. And eventually. And so it went through this incredible rise for a while, and then early grunge stuff started coming along, like early Soundgarden, early stuff like that. Chili Peppers, Faith No More, Primus stuff started coming along, and like all of a sudden all the thrash bands kind of shifted over to that, and all of a sudden they were like incorporating, it was like thrash funk, and I was like, oh no, we don't need to do that. And and then I think just some of every band started kind of following whatever Metallica did. Metallica slowed down, so other bands slowed down, and it just changed. Like you could just, I don't know, maybe because I'm an artist, I'm a little more in tune to it, but I could just sense the change was in the air, and I wanted to be a part of something different.
It's interesting. So sometimes our vocabulary fails us, and there aren't words to describe the vibe or that intuition. Yeah, it's a challenge we need to overcome. But how does the Roadrunner signing come about then? How does is it Borovoy who catches wind first?
So we start doing just like warehouse shows and house parties, and we play a couple little club shows here and there, but they're 20 people, 30 people. They're outside of town. Our drummer was from our original drummer was from Las Vegas, and so we did a lot of demoing, a lot of like rehearsal demos. But like we were hustling, man. Like I was taking, like, if we did a show and we made $50, I'd take that $50 and like it, and it's still to this day the same. Like it's just always about reinvesting into the band. Like you make $50, okay, we're gonna make flyers and we're gonna make demo covers and we're gonna make stickers and we're gonna go to the Slayer show that's coming up, and every single car in the parking lot, they don't want it, but they're going to end up with the Machine Head sticker on the back of their fucking car. And like we would literally do that. Like we'd fucking hit every single car in the fucking parking lot. Like, wow. Here's your unwanted Machine Head sticker, and then we get we become a free billboard everywhere. Fucking and the stickers. I had a punk rock friend, Tim from Rancid, actually hooked me up with this super killer punk rock printer. And he would only print if you were unsigned or like on an independent label. Like if you were on a major label, he was like, fuck you. And we were unsigned. So this dude would make shit tons of stickers for us. I mean, tons for super cheap. So fucking everywhere we went was just, and people started to, kind of catch the vibe. We were, we had a reputation. We got in a lot of fights. We drank a lot, and we got in a lot of fights, and people loved us or they hated us, and we ended up getting banned from 3 venues in the Bay Area in our hometown because just from fighting all the time. And
badge of honor.
But it was kind of a badge of honor, and it got people talking. Like people, it was like, people were talking about the band because of it. And they're like, oh, I want to check out this band, and our shows were fucking crazy. So a lot of times we'd have to stop the show because it would just turn into one fight, a big fight like that, and nobody was having fun. We're like, dude, stop, like chill, like, stop fighting. And So, we kind of started getting a buzz because of all that, and because the songs were really good.
Sure.
And we recorded the demo, and then we sent it over to, I think we met Monty. I had stalked Monty. I had stalked Monty at a Foundations forum, which is like it was like an industry event back in the day. I'm not really sure what it was, but like just bands played and you could shop and
Yeah, like a CMJ sort of thing.
Yeah, like you promote yourself. It was kind of weird, but anyway, I ended up tracking Monty down. I got him the demo, and I don't think he was really feeling it. But then Buravoy got the demo, and he really liked it, and so I think he kind of got Monty more back on. He's like, dude, this is killer. Like, what are you talking about?
Where's Buravoy at this point? Is he writing? Is it Metal Maniacs, or is he?
Yeah, he's writing for Metal Maniacs.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And yeah, we sent it to him at Metal Maniacs.
Right. Okay.
I mailed our demo, like in snail mail, to wrote him a little letter like, "Hey, Robb Flynn," and that's how he ended up with it.
Wow. And it took him nudging Monty to say.
And then Monty came out. Monty liked it, and then Monty came out and checked out a rehearsal, and took us out to dinner. And him and I hit it off. Like I liked him. I thought he was cool, and I think he was scared of me at the time because I was really thugged out, and I don't know. He liked it. He liked the vibe. He liked the vibe, and it was good. We were like, especially at that point, like we were all, Adam and Logan had never even been in a band. They had never played on stage like prior to Machine Head. Like, so everything was brand new. So it was all like, it felt very young, and everybody was just kind of excited to be there, and Chris was there by then, and Chris had been in a bunch of punk rock bands, so he was pretty well known and respected for all the hardcore stuff that he had done, like Attitude Adjustment and Verbal Abuse and stuff like that. So it was a good vibe, and Monty signed us basically sight unseen. He didn't even see us play live.
Wow. Okay. Just on Buravoy's endorsement and the vibe generally.
And then just he watched our rehearsal, hung out with us, loved the vibe. He's like, I got to sign this. This is going to be fucking killer.
Were you courted by anyone else? Or was it just Roadrunner that was on your radar at that point?
We were courted. Yeah, I want to say we were talking with Earache, maybe Metal Blade, a couple of other labels. Not a lot, though. Like people didn't really, we got turned down by quite a few labels. In fact, I kept all of the rejection letters from the labels. Because I was just like, fuck you. And yeah, we got turned down by Tool's record label, who they were on at the time. I can't remember who it was, but it was sort of an independent kind of one-off thing. But for me, I really, really wanted to be on Roadrunner. Like we were talking with other people, but it was almost just to get leverage. You know what I mean? Like my manager's like, we just need to get leverage. And our lawyer said the same thing. So we were, we were lucky enough to have Joey Houston, our manager, who was very, very business savvy, had a lot of contacts. We ended up getting Testament's lawyer, and just, we had some good people kind of right off the bat. And so, but at the time, Roadrunner was killing it, dude. I mean, Roadrunner was fucking top dog, in my opinion. They had Biohazard, they had just had Sepultura, and I guess they kind of still had Sepultura because it was like Epic and Roadrunner released Chaos AD. Chaos AD was massive.
Yeah.
They had Obituary, they had Deicide. I mean, they were fucking killing it. And so to me, I was like, that just seems like they're gonna get what we're doing. They got money, they've got clout, they've got credibility, and not to say that any of the other labels that we were talking to didn't, but they were just hot. Like fucking Roadrunner was just, in 1993, they were the fucking hottest thing around.
Yeah. It's interesting when this sort of credibility comes in for me, because it seems to be like on that wave when Sepultura is sort of broken and they've got this roster that you described there. That's when the iron's hot and everyone's hitting it. Before that point, there were still successes like King Diamond and Merciful Fate and Crimson Glory and some other things, and some of the new wave British heavy metal stuff. But it's the 90s period, which is just like, It's trend setting.
I know. I think I know what you're saying. In the acts have it like, it's very diverse. They've got, they've got legit underground, huge underground death metal acts with Obituary and Deicide. These are selling shit tons of records, 150,000 records for a fucking completely underground, non-major label, not even major label distribution. That's a lot of the thing that people, I think, there's this thing that gets said all the time that drives me up the fucking wall. It annoys the shit. I think Slipknot's who started saying it anyway, but Machine Head had the biggest, debut in Roadrunner history with Burn My Eyes, and then that's always followed. Some jackass always follows it until Slipknot's debut came along, and I'm fucking pretty goddamn sure that fucking Slipknot started saying that shit. The difference is, when Burn My Eyes became that biggest debut record on Roadrunner, it was a fully independent label. Every cog in the wheel, from the distributor to the record company to the you name it, was independent. There was no major label anywhere associated. By the time we paved the way because of the success of that, and then other bands coming along too and also having success. Because of that success, Roadrunner then linked up with a major label. So by the time Slipknot drops on Ross Robinson, who's the fucking hottest producer on the planet Earth after Korn and Limp Bizkit's success, now through a major label, of course it fucking exploded beyond all belief because you had a major label who could go and shoot it off into the fucking universe.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. Obituary didn't have that. Sepultura didn't have that. All of those bands that paved it. It was truly, when I say this, it was 100% an independent label. With independent offices, not in the Atlantic building, but like a standalone building all over the earth. It was fucking amazing, to see something that cool, but still, fully independent.
Speaking of the offices and that infrastructure, was the LA office open at this point? Is that who you're liaising with mostly?
No, New York ran the show.
Right. How did that feel as an LA band? Because at that time, obviously we've spoken about those particular bands. Most of them are centered somewhere around New York or have a strong relationship with New York, especially when we move further into the 90s. Was it a challenge to integrate?
I mean, we're from Oakland, so we're from the Bay Area, so we're 6 hours north of Los Angeles. Los Angeles was always just like a satellite office for Roadrunner.
Right.
They did stuff, and they had some great people there. Kathy, they had some great people there, but like New York ran the show. Like New York called the shots. Like the whole, the epicenter of the music. Everything came from there, so.
Yeah. It was even though you had like offices in Japan, it was like New York was still like the A&R specifically. That was like
I want to say they had, when we signed with them, they had offices in New York, LA, Japan, Australia, France, Holland was the main hub. Holland was where it started, so that was the main hub. The UK, Germany, and then like some kind of satellite little, like 3 labels in one. In like Sweden and Finland and Scandinavia, which is pretty fucking impressive, dude. And the you went to the main office in the Netherlands. I did. So we got signed. We signed a 7-album deal with Roadrunner, and as Case Wessels like once bragged to me when him and I went out to dinner or to lunch one time at this Brazilian sushi place that he loved. He was the guy who invented the 360 deal. I was like, thanks. But it was basically the precursor to a 360 deal. So we had to sign over our record album rights, our publishing rights, and our merchandise rights, and that's how they did it back then. They're like, we're an independent label. We need to have as many revenue streams as possible. But if you sign over all those rights, then, we'll make it worth your while by investing more money. And the thing that was crazy about it was that usually it was all cross collateralized, which means that if you didn't pay your record advance back, then it could get paid back with publishing or royalties. Our lawyer and our manager were like, never going to happen, not cross collateralizing, fuck that. And I remember that being a big sticking point, you know, when we were negotiating with them, but we just held firm and they eventually agreed to it. And kind of glad we did in the long run. But you know, it did. So we ended up getting signed. I go on a press tour, and you know, I've never been on I've never left America. So my first time going to Europe, and I'm on a fucking plane. And this is back when planes, like, they had a smoking section on a plane.
Wow.
So like if you smoke, you were in the last like 15 aisles, and then like if you didn't smoke, you were just in the. So I'm in the aisle that's directly in front of the first smoking section aisle, and like I've never, back then, like it was just like walking through fucking, you know, like picture the headless horseman coming out of the fog on his horse, like that much fog is fucking cigarette smoke in a plane. I'm like, this sucks. Like, what the fuck is this? And it's 12 hours, you know, it's a 12-hour flight of just endless cigarette smoke. And so I finally get there, I'm wiped out, you know, I start doing press, and, you know, I can't remember where I started. I want to say I might have started in Germany, but it was like, you know, I got there and I was like, wow, man, like this is a fucking big operation. Like they're a fucking real record company. And then I did, you know, I'm flying or taking trains to Belgium and Switzerland and Netherlands, and I got to the Netherlands, and it's a fucking gigantic, you know, almost warehouse sized office that does Blue Grape the merchandise and fucking, you know, so it felt like something big, you know, like just being there and seeing all that, like I could feel that they could do whatever we needed to do.
Really? So it's kind of like, that's when you realize this isn't just like this isn't going into an office in New York and signing a record deal. This is a worldwide infrastructure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I met I met the owner Case on that first one, on that first trip.
What was your impression of
him? He was okay. You know, he was, I felt like he was a little standoffish, but you know, he probably felt the same way about me. I might have been standoffish too.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously the world revolves around Monty. Do you remember anyone else in the office? Because there's some characters, isn't there?
Oh, totally. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Monty was a great character, and to this day is, you know, I owe Monty my career. You know, like, I mean, I've said it many times. I mean, I owe him my career. Like, he's signed my band 4 times now. Like, he continues to believe in me. He continues to support us and finance us, and, you know, like, he's awesome. And but, you know, like, going to the New York office, one of the big characters there was Scott Givens. Psycho, Mark Abramson was also another huge character. I can't remember who the president was, but I hung out a lot with Scott Givens and Mark Abramson. Like, we went out drinking, you know, just fucking talking metal all night, shooting the shit. I want to say Jen Miola might have been there. That was a girl, Jen Miola. Sophie Diamantis. Sophie Diamantis was the press girl she was and she's still awesome. I haven't talked to her in forever, but I loved her. She was so fucking awesome, funny, and just fucking crazy. And, you know, she would date Glenn Benton every once in a while. Like, I mean, she was like telling me all these crazy stories, like, oh shit, you know. So it was a wild time, you know.
Tell me a bit about Scott Givens, because he's a name that's come up a few times, but I don't know anything about him. Was he A&R or was he something else?
I think he was my what was he? I think he was my product manager at that point.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was my product manager. And Psycho did radio.
Yes.
Sophie did press. I think Jen Miola did press as well. Jen Miola might have been later. I can't remember. You know, it's fucking 26 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
You're forgiven.
But Scott Givens was awesome. He's a funny motherfucker. He's really big dude, like overweight, but like fucking like loud and fucking rah, you know, like just the fucking between him and Psycho, they were just the life of the party. So it was always good to hang around those guys.
Yeah.
And Monty was not, Monty was never like the life of the party. Like Monty was very kind of straight shooter, like always talked about music. He definitely, would offer lengthy opinions on stuff, and like kind of try and which annoyed me at first, because I was just like, I don't want your long ass opinion. You know what I mean? But like I've come to really appreciate it. Like I've come to really respect it, especially dealing with so many other record company people now. Sometimes you send somebody your music and you're like, hey, you're like, give me some feedback. And they're like, cool. Or whatever. You're like, okay, like, that's cool, but maybe a little more. But he was great.
Did Burn My Eyes skew the expectations for the band because it was such a success? Did it make Roadrunner think, okay, next one it's going to be gold platinum, it's going to be fucking gold plated jets?
I think when nobody. I mean, we delivered an awesome record. They gave us a $35,000 advance to record the record, which is sizable chunk of money for that time. We hired Colin Richardson, and we recorded it at my house. Colin lived with me while we recorded the record,
right? And
we did it at Fantasy, which is pretty, which was a pricey studio for the time, and then we hated the mix. Like I hated the mix, and Monty hated the mix. The mix sounded like shit. In fact, every band we were in the studio when we were doing Burn My Eyes. Green Day was doing Dookie, Rancid was doing something else, and then Tesla was in. Every band left there and remixed their record someplace else because it just sounded terrible. And so, we needed more money. We ended up going to the studio where Nirvana did Nevermind.
Yeah.
And, they gave us 20 more grand to do that. So in the end, they gave us $55,000.
Wow.
And, that was, they believed in it that much that they gave us, so right off the bat, I was like, that's pretty fucking awesome. Like they must believe in this. And Monty came out to the studio when we were recording Burn My Eyes, and was hanging out with us, and he heard Davidian. When he heard Davidian for the first time, he was like, oh my fucking God. So I think him coming out and hanging out the studio that first time, like, was the only reason we got that money, because he just believed in it so much after that. He was like, dude, this song's fucking sick. And so we ended up going to LA and we remixed it, and it turned out that was the final mix that ended up being awesome. Buravoy came out, he was there. Me and Monty came out for the second mix. Him and I went and saw Korn and the Deftones at some tiny little 150 capacity club called the Dragonfly. And Deftones headlining over Korn in LA. And that was the first time I saw Korn. And then just it came out, and I think that we all had high expectations. I considered myself older at the time. By this time, I'm like 26 now, and I felt old. Like I was like, "Fuck, I'm 20. I'm over the hill." Like putting my fucking this record out, and like I really wanted. Like I had a lot of drive, and I had a very strong vision for how I wanted things to be and look and sound. And so I, when we did the press tour, like, I just attacked it with a vengeance. Like, I just like, I want this, we had, I think we wanted it to sell. What was our thing? If we sold 20,000 records worldwide, we're stoked. We were like, that'll probably pay back the money we borrowed, hopefully, and like, that's fucking sick for a first album. And we wanted to open the one show at the Oakland Arena with Slayer, which is called the Henry J. Kaiser Center. So if we achieved those two things, like in our minds, we were the kings. Like that was so, we had what we considered to be high expectations.
Yeah.
But they were pretty modest, really, and so the first tour that we did was Napalm Death and Obituary. And we were friends. We had already been friends with Napalm Death because they came to Violence. I'd met those guys. They were great guy, Mitch and Shane, and Obituary label mates.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to the UK, I hosted Headbangers Ball. Headbangers Ball was off the air in America, but it was still on the air in Europe, and it was very powerful. Like, it was fucking everywhere, and it was big, and everybody watched it still. And so they had me as the host, and it was just like a little short 20-minute segment.
Mm-hmm.
But Vanessa Warwick loved me. Like, we totally hit it off. She was like, "Oh my God," she's like, "Dude, you're a total natural. Like, fucking, you need to host every time you come through. Just host." I was like, "Okay, like, sure, whatever." And at the time, it was just like I wasn't doing anything. I just did it, and it ended up kind of hitting. And then they played the Davidian video, and it just fucking exploded. Like, it fucking, I mean, it was crazy. Like, we came in top 24, in the UK, and higher, even higher in Germany, but in America, it only came in at like, I think we sold like 1,000 copies its first week or something, or like 1,100 copies, which was great. Like, we were like, fuck yeah, that's killer. We're a brand new band. Nobody knows who the fuck we are. And, but over there, it was just so, it was a phenomenon.
Was it just the UK where it blew up, or was
everywhere, everywhere, all of fucking Europe, Australia, like, it fucking exploded. And we was just like, holy shit. And we're on tour in America, and we're opening, first of 3, and we're on a death metal grindcore tour, and to a lot of people, we were not at all heavy enough to be on this tour, and everybody's like, oh, like, fucking just whatever, accusing us of buying on it. And I'm just like, we didn't look. We're making $200 a night here. Like, fucking nobody bought on to anything.
Yeah.
And but Roadrunner did help us with that, like, in the sense that they gave us tour support for that type of stuff. And then about halfway through the tour, all 3 bands, Napalm Death, Obituary, and Machine Head, were all vying to get the Slayer tour in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And the fucking Davidian video just exploded. We're coming in top 20. I mean, it was a no-brainer for Slayer. Like, hey, let's get this young hot band and do it. And so, they're only paying us $500 a night. So that's not enough. It didn't cover anything. So again, Roadrunner, a lot more tour support. They gave us the tour support for that. And then that tour really just solidified everything. I mean, it was, if there's a second person I owe my career to, it's Kerry King for believing in Machine Head. He took us on that tour, took us on tour in the U.S. right after that. I mean, massive, cut our pay by, we were making $250 in the U.S., but we were like, fuck it, we're on tour with Slayer. Slayer was my favorite band. I'd seen Slayer more than any other band at this point. And, it was a huge, massive opportunity and a massive honor to be even asked and, to be allowed to open for Slayer. So, yeah.
The catalyst for this is similar to a catalyst that I heard speaking to Dino, because he mentioned Vanessa Warwick as well. I'm getting this vibe that she's quite central to breaking, or not necessarily breaking, I'm mincing my words, but she seems to have a role in this, in the UK credibility of Roadrunner bands. It might not even just be Roadrunner bands, it might just be good fucking metal, but she certainly has a role there somewhere. Does that sound about right? Could you have any more memories of her?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she was pivotal. And, she came out on the road to meet us with Slayer opening night, in Belfast. She was there. We do a big, long interview. She was very important. And certainly Roadrunner in the UK had a lot of fucking great bands, man. So, of course she was playing them, and they were young and cool and different. And she was fun. Like, she was really fun to hang around. Like, she was a cool chick. She was really tall, and like, she was just like, kind of like hanging out with a dude. She's like kind of tough, and she'd like hit you in the shoulder, shit like that. But I really liked her. And she totally just she just felt that I really did great on camera. And so just anytime she was there, like, they would be at the fucking London show, and she's like, hey, just, can you host the after thing with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. She was with, I think she was with that guy in a band at the time, Warwick,
he was in Thin Lizzy
or something like that.
Ricky Warwick.
Yeah. And they were, yeah, there was definitely like there was another guy, we called him Punkus. His name was Marcus, though. Marcus worked in the UK office, and he was like he was the video liaison guy. So he was the guy who worked MTV, proposed the bands to MTV. Yeah, Mark Palmer. Mark Palmer was the main guy in the UK office, and Mark Palmer was like a big, if you want to go over to Europe, like the big personalities over there that I probably remember was definitely Mark Palmer. You know, me and him hit it off because he loved Rush and he loved Bonded by Blood by Exodus, and I was like, all right, you're a man after my heart here, because fucking Exodus was like my all time, and so we broke down super hard over that. Alon. This guy's dude's name, I can't remember his last name, but Alon in the Netherlands. What was they had the big red-headed guy, fucking Stefan, I think his name was.
Stefan Costa.
Yes, he was also like he was pretty big wig over there. In France, they had, I think it was the girl. There was a couple of girls. I'm totally brain farting on everybody's name right now.
I can help you out here. Bear with me. But Stefan Custer, Alain Verhav is who you were talking about.
Yeah, Hank over in Germany. Hank was a fucking maniac.
Hecker,
yeah, Hank Hecker. He was fucking awesome.
Nora,
yes, in France. Yes.
That's it. Why do you think it hit so much in Europe as opposed to the States at the time?
I mean, I do think that the fact that there was 4 metal magazines for every single country and Headbangers Ball, certainly helped. At this point in America, there was maybe 2 metal magazines, Metal Maniacs, maybe Rip was still going. We got a little bit of coverage in there. MTV Headbangers Ball was off of, completely off. So it was almost like this weird transition period in America. Like everything was kind of, like I said, like, it was changing. Like it really was changing, like the thrash and even just metal in general. Metal Edge was kind of going around, but Metal Edge was like kind of like a poser magazine. And so like they were still catering to like glam rock, and it's like no one cared about that shit. It was like the C&D. It wasn't even like the good glam rock. It was like the C&D League glam rock, fucking Bang Tango and shit like that. So, I do think that it was a slower build for us. That Slayer tour definitely shot us way up into the public, and that was huge, massive opportunity for us.
When we think about because you are absolutely right in terms of the territories, especially in Europe, when we think about there's like 4 magazines, there's 300 square miles that you have to cover. It's all fairly simple stuff. But when you go to the States, it's so fragmented. It's
massive, and you've
huge.
Got 1 or 2 magazines. Yeah.
And if it is breaking down, because I knew that metal was perceived to be having a hard time, especially in the States at that time. But it's interesting you say that there's an infrastructure breakdown with the press because there's only 2 things going. There's 2 things, and there's like a Poser magazine and things like that.
And then there's a lot of local stuff. There's local metal magazines, but it was still, when I said that there was 4 metal magazines per country, I mean, I'm talking like every country had 4 major metal magazines that were in every newsstand, every fucking every airport, anywhere you fucking went. Like it was like seeing a People magazine or seeing a Time magazine, or like, it was just it was everywhere. And
so in this time of in this weird vacuum in the States, then how critical are like these flagship brands like Ozfest? Is there anything else like Ozfest at the time?
No, Ozfest isn't even going at the time. There's nothing going. It's just all regular touring.
When's the first Ozfest? I'm sure it was like,
I want to say 96 is the first Ozfest.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like a long time, but it's 3 years after Burn My Eyes. So like there's nothing prior to that in the metal sense. There's a couple of little local metal festivals and stuff, but there's nothing. There's no major thing. So we're just touring. I mean, we're just touring and touring and touring. We're touring with Slayer. We tour with Napalm, and just headlining everywhere. We just get a small package and just. I mean, in America, we're touring. Every fucking pool hall, I mean, we're doing 60 tour dates in fucking, 2.5 months on the road, living with Stuck Mojo, like on a bus, 15 dudes on a bus. Like it's fucking insanity for 2.5 months. And,
all the while it's still
yeah.
exploding over in the European territories.
We do that, and we do the in Europe we do the Slayer tour. Fucking we're selling more merchandise than Slayer a night, and we only got 2 shirts. Like fucking, it's crazy. Like it's fucking crazy. And we go over there, and then we come. The tour is amazing. We go over to do Europe. I mean, sorry, we do the U.S. also amazing. And then we come back and we headline the same venues that we played with Slayer. And we take a young band out called Meshuggah, who had never been on tour before, and I had been freaking out on their Nun EP. Yeah. So we like helped launch their career, and I love that band. Fuck, I love those first couple. They were dropping Destroy, Erase, Improve. So it's just fucking night after night. I just watch them and just try and figure out that Soulburn riff. Like, what is the fucking fuck? That's sick. Judd. Like fucking so good.
There's this. I'm trying to piece together this milestone moment for the label. It appears to be Dynamo 95. That appears to be like this weird tipping point where, because even though what I said earlier, like Roadrunner was like a recognizable brand and it was a very viable sort of vehicle and everyone knew what it was, Dynamo 95 seems to be this other beast. Do you have any memories of that day? Because a lot of people I ask about their memories.
Stacked with Roadrunner bands.
Yeah,
it was stacked. Like every day had like 10 Roadrunner bands. It was crazy. Yeah, I remember we were there for the whole thing because we ended our European headline tour that segued into some other festival and then Dynamo. Right. And we were a fucking machine. We had been on the road for a year straight at this point, like a year straight, like almost like a week off between tours, 2 weeks off between. We were a fucking killing machine. Like it was just, we were killing it. And I just remember Dog Eat Dog, who I didn't really care about at the time. Like they were a Roadrunner band. They were kind of hot. Like but fucking, they blew the roof off the place. I mean, like they just had that perfect kind of party, groovy, hip hoppy kind of, like white boy. Like it was just fucking, it was stupid how much they annihilated that fucking festival. It was crazy.
I'll interrupt there just because I was speaking to Howie Abrams last night, who was obviously the guy that signed Dog Eat Dog. And I was watching a bit of that set because I love Dog Eat Dog. I think they're a right laugh. And I never really dug deep into that set because that's like the big milestone. And then I paused at one point and I see 2 people in the background and it's you and Monty just stood there like...
Dude, they fucking blew the roof off the place. I can't remember. We played 2 of them, and so they kind of blurs together to me. I think Typo Negative might have played. Yeah. Maybe that was the next one. I want to say Fear Factory might have played, but maybe that was the next one. In 95? 95,
yeah. People forget that Paradise Lost headlined that night because they were waiting for Typo.
Right. Biohazard headlined our night, I think. Yeah, I think that's who headlined, and they killed it. Another Roadrunner band, they fucking slayed it. I think, but by that point, I think that they were on Warner Brothers. They got picked up by Warner's. So
it was like an incubation deal.
Yeah.
So Roadrunner were always by design going to have that Urban Discipline album.
Yes.
And then they were going to go.
They were already on the next record, but they were just fucking killing it at that point, and they were amazing. Who else did I catch? I don't know. It was fun. My girlfriend, she's not my wife, Ginevra, came out. Took a bunch of ecstasy. Fucking, it was awesome. Like we had the fucking. It was awesome.
So many people I asked that question to because for me, like if I'm trying to do a history of Roadrunner, you try and pick these milestone moments, and everyone goes, it was the most pivotal part of the '90s for the label. Great, tell me what happened. I can't. I was shit-faced, Jim.
Oh my god, yeah, fucking so shit-faced for so much of it. Actually, I was sober for a lot of the Slayer tour because I started losing my throat. I started losing my voice singing. I had ended up taking singing lessons somewhere in there to learn how to sing. Never learned how to sing.
Jesus.
And so
on tour as well.
But then by the time we got to Dynamo, I was fucking. We were raging every fucking night. For me, the set was it was a blur. I mean, 130,000 people. As far, I mean, you know, like that saying, as far as the eye can see, it was people as far as the eye could see. I'm not even like, I'd never believed that term meant anything until we played that show.
Yeah.
You couldn't see the end of the crowd. It just blurred into the skyline. It was fucking crazy. And why it was in fucking sane. Like there was time, like when we started that opening, fucking the whole crowd, 60,000 people, just fucking the whole front half just jumping. It was I mean, it was goosebumps. It was fucking goosebumps. And I remember, you know, I'm a pretty competitive person when it comes to like that stuff. Like, and even though I don't feel like I'm competing with a band, but like when I go up on stage, like the only band I want you to remember is Machine Head.
Sure.
My goal is to blow every band off the face of the fucking earth. And whether I achieve that or not is up for the audience to decide. But that's my mindset. Like, fucking kill this shit. And I mean, if I had that mindset for every show leading up to Dynamo, by the time I got to Dynamo, it was like, oh no, it's fucking like I'm murdering this fucking crowd tonight.
This is a weird question, but I feel like I need to ask it, which is when we look at that lineup and knowing that they're all Roadrunner bands, from my perspective is like trying to be objective about it and look at it. It feels like these bands all sound different. They're all metal bands, but they all sound fundamentally different. They've all got their own sort of unique qualities, but there's a thread. There's something in there which brings the story together. And it might be because they're just all on Roadrunner, but there's something else that's, again, it's like words are now failing us. There aren't words to describe this. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a family vibe. Maybe it's, there's just something that
it wasn't a family vibe. It wasn't a family vibe. You know, there was little rivalries, you know, like all the bands were pretty competitive, you know, like once people started having success, all the other bands went, oh, they're having success. Oh, fucking, you know, like for a minute there, almost every band on Roadrunner fucking hated our guts because they're like, oh, fucking all the money's going into Machine Head, I guess. Huh? You know, like I'd hear all the grumblings and, you know, like there was a bunch of bands that were like that. And then that in another way, it kind of brought out this like competitive juices in all the other bands because they're like, oh, Machine Head just sold 500,000. Well, fucking, we want to sell 600,000. We want to sell 700,000. So it was like, it did, I think our success, I mean, I think for Fear Factory, especially, like they were like, no, we want to fucking, like, we kind of got into this little thing with them, you know, Typo Negative, not so much, but like, even like Dog Eat Dog, like they were fucking hot for a minute. And like, they were just like, no, like everybody kind of did that. And I don't say that in a bad way. Like it made everybody push harder and dig deeper. And I think better music came out of it.
Everyone was bringing something to the party. And when they saw what the other guys were bringing, that's why everyone sort of belted out at it. It's interesting. I bet Case fucking loved that friction.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I mean, I absolutely remember like all kinds of like you'd go on when I did the press tour for the second album. Like I knew every stat for every band. Like it must have been like a fucking, you know, internal memo or something. Like make sure to tell, you know, so and so sold this and oh they drew this much and you know like it started getting into that kind of shit. You know,
hey man, the sound scans out so you can actually take that data.
Right.
And you can use it for your
maybe not at the beginning. Maybe not at the beginning, but yeah.
About 93, 94 is when it kicks in, I think.
Yeah. But you know, for sure. But even up until then, you know, like we were still a brand new band. Like we needed tour support from Roadrunner. So like they're still giving us tour support, you know, stuff like that. So they invested a lot.
Did you ever doubt them? Was there ever any like, because this isn't so much a Roadrunner worship vehicle but we've got to understand that they did something unlike any other label and they had the efficacy to do it. And we need to understand why, because people of my generation need to learn to administrate metal, right? We kind of, especially these days where everything's moving so quickly. So the real crux of this entire project is the knowledge transfer. So when I say, did you ever doubt Roadrunner? We've got all these things like the infrastructure's there. It's a worldwide body. They're supporting Machine Head because they know what value it could have either monetarily or for the scene. But there are ever any points where you're like, these guys are fucking this up? Even if it's not that bad,
It would be late. Yeah, it would be later for sure. Certainly not in the, certainly not in the Burn My Eyes era. I think they did everything right. Like
take me to the fuck up then. I'll take me to the contentious area, if you want to.
I would say, like, I don't want to say that was a golden era for Roadrunner, because that it was just my introduction to Roadrunner. Like, that was my first experience, my first 2 years experience with Roadrunner, and it was really good. Like, it was really, really amazing. America definitely struggled way behind Europe in like sales and profile and everything. Even like, even just like getting press and stuff like that. Like, it was different. I never was able to kind of pinpoint why.
Right. I was going to say, were they on the back foot or something? But if we can't pinpoint it, we can't pinpoint it.
Yeah. I mean, there was great people that I loved. It just was always different. Like, it was just, I don't know, like, in some ways Roadrunner over in Europe was viewed, I think people viewed them like as a major force, whereas in America they weren't viewed as a major force. I don't know why. And so it made it more challenging. And then just the fact that things were changing so much. I'd say like around 98, 99, like, that's when, the major label connection came through. By then Roadrunner had like many big successes. The major label thing kind of came into play.
The Universal sale was what? It was 2001, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, that might have been no, they were with a major label before that as a distribution.
Oh yeah.
They partnered with it. Yeah, and in fact, pockets of it, like Germany, I think partnered with Warner. Like all these, the major label influence started to be felt certainly around 98, 99.
Interesting.
Like it definitely became about, we need a hit single, we need a, stuff that I had never really heard before. Stuff that, like, those type of things that had never been, like, no one said, hey, Davidian's a hit single. Like, it was like, just, now the pressure's on. They're starting to sign other bands that are starting to have success at radio. So now you're starting to have this kind of like stuff come in. And it changed. And I'm not going to say it was a bad thing. Like, we adapted with it too. I was kind of, another change was happening. And like, I can tell you, I've been playing music since 1988. I've seen a lot of things come and go. Like, I've watched a lot of genres, I've watched a lot of trends, I watched a lot of whatever's come and go. And this was definitely another time when things were changing, and I could again sense that things were changing. And I think that, like, as a band, you got to adapt, man. Like, you just got to adapt. Like, the sands, like, Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest once told me, the sands of time will bury you. You have to adapt. And I believe that. That's stuck with me. That's stuck with me really. He told me that in 1996, and it really stuck with me for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And that's a dude who's adapted and fucking made Judas Priest powerful forever. So, that's when things started to change. A lot of people changed positions. Some people were out now. There was a whole new regime that came in. There was like, Scott Givens was gone, and maybe he was still there, but he was kind of doing something else. And they had a new president now, and everything was going through him, and it changed. And I don't know if I doubted them. They still, we still got a big advance, and we still got lots of stuff. But I do remember that we were in the middle of right around the time that Burning Red came out. I mean, obviously Slipknot came out within like our two records came out like within like a couple of weeks of each other. And of course Slipknot, fucking, the phenomenon that we had in Europe, that was the phenomenon that Slipknot had. Like, just, they're opening for us, and it's like the fucking Beatles. Like, I can't explain to you how fucking insane it was to fucking the hottest band on the face of the fucking earth. Everybody, they're selling 10 times the merch as all 3 bands above them are selling. You know, like, it was fucking insane. And we were just like, what the fuck? Like, what? They ended up on the fucking Letterman show. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
And so at about that time, you know, probably more jealousy than, you know, not doubting that they could do anything. But again, they got a major label behind them now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, once the machine kicks in, like, they've got that extra layer to kind of kick up the fucking gear. I've never talked about this either, but during this time, you know, we had signed, like I told you at the beginning, we had signed our publishing over to All Blacks BV, which was their publishing company. And we were in the middle of renegotiating our publishing deal. And at the same time, unbeknownst to us, Case was negotiating selling off all of the publishing catalog to another publisher, which, of course, nobody's telling us this as we're renegotiating that. So we're just about to sign this, you know, renegotiated publishing deal because it was pretty unfair. You know, here we are, like, 3 albums in, like, we've got this fucking piss royalty rate. Yeah. And all of a sudden he sells his entire fucking publishing catalog for Roadrunner Records, all the bands, all the everything, off to somebody else. And this was like fury. Like, we were fucking livid. I mean, it, like, really derailed a bunch of, you know, stuff for us. And this was probably one of the biggest things that I, you know, I don't want to say it was the beginning of the end, but it was like a fucking giant, it was like war from that point on. Like, we were fucking, like, we did not like Roadrunner at all at this point. And so, you know, luckily we were able to salvage most of the deal with the new publisher, because we were like, hey, we were in the middle of this. This is totally fucked, you know. So, like, they ended up kind of smoothing stuff out.
Who ate them up?
What's that?
Who was it who ate the publishing up?
I can't even remember now, but like, they did. I mean, it was every band on the label. You know, like, it was every fucking band on the label. Like, you know, he sold his share of the publishing. Okay. And so, you know, which was his right to do, because he could do whatever he wanted. That he owned it, but, like, it was just like, what the fuck? Like, you never think that that's going to happen with your shit.
Yeah.
And so,
this is 99, is it?
Yeah.
You say. Okay. When's the first break? You said that Monty signed you 4 times, so I'm assuming obviously one is 92, 93. Number 2, there's a breakup at some point, but I reckon number 4 is Nuclear Blast, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Nuclear Blast a couple times, yeah.
Oh, Nuclear Blast a couple of times. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a re-signing for Through the Ashes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Something like that. Can you tell me?
We negotiate. Contrary to popular myth, we were not dropped by Roadrunner. We negotiated off of Roadrunner based on some contractual stuff that they didn't fulfill during the Supercharger era, and so we had them in some contractual, you know, snafu, basically.
Okay, which I won't pry into.
Things had been promised, things weren't delivered, you know, so whatever. But you know, Supercharger was released 2 weeks after 9/11, so just, you know, it's like the worst time to release
this is interesting though, because so was Silver Side Up. And Silver Side Up was, I mean, I'm not comparing the apples and oranges, but it shows they're not shy, are they?
Yeah. No, it's funny too, because Silver, was that after it?
The day.
Oh, the day.
9/11
on 9/11.
Yeah, it was like Mark Everton thought that he was worried that God Hates Us All was coming out. Yes. And that's who he was competing with. Little did he know what was waiting for him that Tuesday morning.
Well, you know, the thing is I remember I did the press tour for Supercharger, and I was, you know, again, I mean, I'm going to Germany, I did Japan, Australia, like, I went worldwide for this press tour, and everywhere I went, all anybody at Roadrunner was talking about was Silver Side Up,
right?
Nickelback. Everybody was like, this is gonna be the fucking biggest record of the year, and I was just like, what? Like, I'd never even heard of it. I didn't even know they were on Roadrunner. I was like, you know, because the first record came out and it did okay, but, like, you know, no one, it didn't light up the rock world. Yeah. And then, you know, this is 2001. I remember being in Australia, and they had a press thing, and I was there, and like I was supposed to do press, and all he talked about, I was so fucking pissed off because all he talked about was fucking Nickelback, and I'm like, bro, I'm here promoting my record. You're all you fucking Nickelback. What the fuck, dude? I fucking like flipped out on him. I'm like, what the fuck? But hey, he was right. Like that record came out, and just like Slipknot may have outsold it, Nickelback shit all over Slipknot. Like they blew the Slipknot record off the face of the fucking earth.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's part 2 of that story because everybody always follows up. Oh, Burn My Eyes, biggest record until Slipknot came along. Well, Slipknot was the biggest until fucking Nickelback came along. Fucking blew them out.
I was gonna ask if
blew Slipknot out.
Yeah. I was gonna ask if that changed your perception of the label, like from you know, from when you initially wanted to get signed to them, but you're already at war with them, so that question is sort of benign, I imagine.
I mean, at this point, I was pretty unhappy with Roadrunner. I didn't like. Again, another regime change happened. They brought in more people. You know, Monty's always the solid. Monty's always my guy. Monty's our A&R guy, and he's the only guy who I really converse with. And while I do like all the new people that come in, and I've had great relationships with a million of these. Corey Brennan, Slipknot's manager, like he was my product manager on the Burning Red. Like he was the guy who I called up when I was fucking drunk and high on cocaine and yelled at and said, "I need $20,000 in tour support. Give it to me, motherfucker. Fuck you." Like he was the guy. Like so I know him from that. And he's I love him. He's one of the most patient men on earth. He's the best. And so all these but then by this point, so many things had changed. Now they've dropped a lot of the death metal bands. Like they've dropped, they're really kind of going for Nickelbacks and Theories of a Dead Man's, and it's kind of getting into that realm, and I don't know. We were just not happy. I think Nickelback was better releasing the record on 9/11 because I just think that they had all that time to make people aware of it. And it was a pretty safe record. Like it was just nothing but like kind of, pop rock. Whereas anything, 3 weeks after 9/11 was, I mean, the world was in like all people were doing was staring at the TV, watching the Twin Towers fall over and over again. Like nobody cared about new music. We went on tour 5 days after 9/11. It was everybody in the audience, including us, was like, "Why? What are we doing here? This is the dumbest thing, like this is crazy. Like what the fuck are we doing?"
Yeah. So how does it? I think we're in a space now where I'll just sort of like anecdotally say this feeling that you got in '99 where the major label influence was seeping in. I imagine by this point it's expounded quite substantially because Universal now owns a stake, and it's like not only are there the influence there, but they're in the fucking room.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's the state of play. And
they weren't in the room. No, they weren't in the room. They were still Roadrunner was still a 100% independent. They had their own offices, standalone offices. They weren't like part of, even they were part of the distribution. They weren't like in other offices. So those guys were in the mix, maybe on the phone. But when you went to the Roadrunner office, it was still the Roadrunner office.
Your guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. So you've negotiated out after the Supercharger debacle, which we won't go into. How do you wind back? How does it come back around?
Honestly, it wasn't a debacle. It sold 300,000 records. So like,
oh no, I meant like the contractual debacle.
Everybody always kind of tries to shit all over it like it was some failure. The reason that we negotiated off is because they didn't do things that they had promised to do. That they had promised us, in person, face to face, that they were going to do. The record still sold 300,000. In fact, the record in a lot of European countries sold better than the Blackening Supercharger. Amazingly, all these years later. So
dude, I have no beef with Supercharger. That was that's when I first heard Machina. But when I say debacle, I meant the contractual debacle.
Right.
Which we're probably legally obliged not to talk about. However.
Yeah. It was just they had promised some stuff and they didn't deliver, like financially, whatever. So
but how does it come back how does it wind back in through the ashes then?
Well, if you're in the music industry and you're in a band, what everybody tells you, probably back around this time certainly, was oh my God, your band should be so much, every band by this point is on a major label, like every fucking band. And so they're like, oh my God, you should be so much bigger. You should be so much better. This, that, the other thing. And, if you do this, I can get you signed onto our label. And so as soon as you get out of your contract, we'll get you on my label. And these are like your friends, your colleague, these are like your band buddies. And like, you start to believe it, even though you shouldn't believe it, like, but you start to believe it. And we get off and we're like, finally we're like, all right, like we're here, like we're free, like sign us. And they're like, slow down. Let's hear some demos. And we're like, wait, what? Like, we're fucking we've got 2 million records sold. Like we've sold 2 million fucking records at this point. Like, what do you mean? Like, you need to see some demos? Well, and it's like, we end up getting rejected by 35 labels.
Fucking hell. Have you got all the rejection letters though?
There were no more letters at this point. Like, it's just like
Texts.
Yeah. Or emails or whatever. Or just like you don't hear from them. That became the thing. Like you just don't hear, like they just cut off all contact from you. Like that's what the music industry does. And so obviously we still draw a lot touring wise. And so we go back over to Europe and we're doing some touring. And Mark Palmer from the UK comes out to the UK show, which I think was the first or second show. And he's like, I really want to get you guys back on Roadrunner. I really want to do this. Like, you still sell shit tons of albums out here. Like, we'll make you a great offer. Like, let's do this. And I was like, fuck, okay. And then we go to other European shows, and the people from the German office come out. They're like, look, I don't know what the fuck happened in America, but we still love you guys. We want to have you guys out. So this kind of gets a ball rolling, and then America kind of gets in it. Monty's just like, hey, like I hear like the Europeans want to re-sign you. Like we want to re-sign you. Like let's try and get so. We start recording the record, and we're paying for the record. Like we're doing this all on our own. We're not getting an advance from anybody. We're just paying for this. And when we're on the last day of recording the album, we've signed the deal with Europe, and America's supposed to pick us up. And then on the last day, America passes on us. And Monty Connor was not able to, he believed in it, but he couldn't get everybody else at the U.S. label to kind of get behind it.
Yeah.
And so, it's a tough pill to swallow. We had kept the fact that we were unsigned up until that point a secret. Like just at least publicly, we hadn't mentioned it, our label status, as is very common in the music. Bands change labels; they don't really say that they change labels. Yep. And but I say it at this point because now it's like the record's going to come out in Europe and not America, and this is before iTunes. This is before this is still CDs, and
yes,
vinyl's dead. It's just CDs, and and so. We're like, well, we're just going to keep on doing it, man. Like, we're going to put it out. We're going to get a label in America, and we'll put it out. And so we put it out. And again, Europe fucking it's fucking phenomenal. The tour does amazing. Record does amazing. Roadrunner America sees that success and goes, okay, well, all right. Well, so then they come back and they, make us an offer. And it's just like, well, slow down.
Hold your horses, boys.
It's going to be a little bit different this time. Just we're all clear here, like we're not gonna give you our publishing, we're not gonna give you our merchandise, we're not, like all the weird funny stuff that went on before, and so we ended up working out a what is it called, a licensing deal, which is where we're partners with them basically.
So So what was the label they were licensing from then?
So they were just licensing the music from us, that we were retaining it.
Nice.
So,
big dick energy.
It was a big move, and coming from the thrash background that I came from, it was all about DIY shit. When I started doing this band, it was all about hustling demo tapes at shows and fucking selling merch out of the backseat of car, out of the trunk of my car. Like it was, and it was back to that. And it's just like, that's how we're going to do this from now on. We're going to keep this controlled in Machine Head. It's going to be, more money, less money in advance, but more money on the back end, that type of stuff. So, it's taking a gamble, and as long as that gamble pays off, you're going to make a lot more money in the end. And that's what we needed to do. We needed to do that. Again, going back to how I started this, like carving your own path, forging my own destiny. Like I needed to do that. I needed to feel like I was in control of this and not like at the whim of some record company. So
it's so interesting. I'd love to hear what conversations had to happen in New York to allow it to happen, because that is like, there's a boilerplate contract, then there's a Roadrunner contract, and you took a fucking 10-ton hammer, no pun intended, to that.
Well, the record was done. See and that was the big difference, right? The record was done. It was already a huge success. It was proven, and so like they didn't have, we had the leverage at that point, because it was like, look, we fucking, we had other labels that were like all about it, and so, it worked out in the end.
Wow. Could Ashes have happened in the way? Could that album be written in the way that it was written without that strife happening previously? Do you think? You think that turmoil is kind of like what drove that as well?
Certainly moments of it. Yeah. Certainly moments of it. A song like Imperium gets written because I've just been rejected by 35 labels, and I've been rejected by, I'm in some weird purgatory where I might be signed in America, and I'm like, fuck everyone. Fuck everything. Jesus, I'm laying this shit all on the line here. And yeah, that's, music. If music is a reflection of where you are as an artist at that time, that's exactly where I was.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's pure insanity. That is an arc. And we've not even got to the Blackening yet. So in a kind of the spirit of the success of Burn My Eyes on the independent capacity, great selling debut on this independent infrastructure, you get nominated for a Grammy as well.
Oh, on the Blackening, yeah.
Yeah. Did you give a shit? What were the stakes at this point?
Well, the Blackening came out, was, huge success also, which followed a great success from Through the Ashes. I mean, massive, tours and records, and, we're playing arenas, in Europe, I should say.
Yeah.
It's funny because we get the news about the Grammy when we're in Italy, in Milano, and probably the smallest show on the whole tour. It's like a club show. So it's just like, we went from playing arenas, and then we're like, okay, and then we're here like, oh, we're back at a club. All right, whatever. 5-band bill in a fucking club. And but it's great news, and it's pretty amazing. And Slayer's nominated for a bonus track from the same album that they won for the year before, and we're like, Slayer's gonna win this, this, like, fucking, because they're the name, it's the name. And then, yeah, it was a big honor. We were stoked. We were very stoked. It didn't even seem, I didn't care about the Grammys. Like, I hadn't watched, like, up until that point, I hadn't watched the Grammys in probably 10 or 15 years. And I never followed it. They had, the metal category was pretty new. Like, they never really respected metal, and I don't think they still do. It's always it's in the other building. It's on the internet. Like, they don't even broadcast it as part of the show. Like, it's on the fucking internet. And but I just remember, like, wow, like, I totally didn't see that coming, and like, holy shit, like, we just got nominated for like, I'm going to the Grammys. Fuck yeah. And so I was more stoked about going to the Grammys and getting to see, like, who else was performing and just being there than, like, really if I was going to win the Grammy.
Did you get the goodie bag?
Yeah, you got the goodie bag. It had like a medal. It had still have the medal. It's like a Grammy medal. It had like some other stuff. I think it had like some cheap booze and, a couple sponsor shit. Yeah, it was good. I didn't we didn't get dressed up. I was like, I'm not gonna get dressed up for this shit. Like, I'm just gonna go like a metal dude. But we went there, and then Slayer won, so, as we suspected. And Kerry King texted me right after it, and he was just like, "I'll take the Grammy, but you should have won this." Because, like, I fucking won for this record last year. What the fuck? It was just like, it just got re-released because it was put out originally on Columbia, then it got redistributed through Sony. So they get I was like, why is the same record even up for nomination? Oh, well, they changed distributors. I was like,
it's not the same. That's interesting. It shows though how metal as a thing had come on, because it was allowed to be disruptive on that level. Even though you're right, it is in a different building, it's not broadcast. It's still a step.
You know what, though? It should be on the main show. We write our own songs. We play our own fucking instruments. We fucking sell shit tons of records and play to shit tons of people. You know, the category before us was Hawaiian instrumental music. I'm like, the fuck? You know, like, look, all due respect to anybody who plays instrumental Hawaiian music, but like, look, you're making money off of it. You're getting nominated for awesome. You know, it's hard as it is to make music and make a living off of music. Good for you. But what in the fucking fuck? I was just like, dude, give me a we're doing shit on a whole other level above this. Like, we deserve some fucking, you know. I look at, dude, some of these fucking musicians in metal bands are fucking ridiculous. Like, the fucking level of musicianship is fucking insane. You know, like the fact that it isn't honored. And what is honored is music that's written by committee. You know, most of the people are just singing a song that someone else wrote, you know, or like, it's fucking lame. You know, it pisses me. It still pisses me off to this day. Still, it's fun going. Took my parents with me to the fucking Grammys. I was like, you know, it's just like a big deal. Like, I made it a big deal. It was cool. Took my wife. It was nice.
How did the Black Crusade come about? Because that to me, that's my Dynamo. Because I was the right age for that. I got shit-faced on a Ferris wheel in Manchester, then just rocked in time for Arch Enemy. It was the guy wouldn't let us on with a bottle of Jaeger, so I said, "What if we went to McDonald's and got a large Coke, tipped the Coke out, and put the Jaeger in? Would you let us on then?" He was like, "Yeah, go on then, boys." And we got fucking shit-faced, and then came to that show in Manchester. It was awesome. And that was like another sort of like all road.
Oh my god, that Manchester show was fucking ignorant. It was so good.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yeah, whose design was it to go, we're going to do this thing called the Black Crusade. It's going to be stacked full of Roadrunner bands and Arch Enemy, who I don't think were on Roadrunner at the time. No. And it was very, very of its time. It was beautifully of its time.
Yeah.
Dragon Force was well within Human Rampage that came out. It was like everything you'd want of someone of my exact demographic and as a metalhead who was, you know, being raised on that time. So how did that come about? Was that by design, or was that like just you picking that?
You know what? Matt Heafy came up to me. We were on tour with Trivium at that point. It was Lamb of God, Trivium, Machine Head, and Gojira, and we're out in the U.S. And he said, "Hey, we've been kind of working on a tour with Dragon Force. Would you guys like to do it?" Like, and I was like, "Well," "we'd probably have to headline, you know, like, because we'd probably have to headline." And he's like, "That's cool." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I think it'd be sick." And he's just like, "I think it'd be fucking super sick." And I was like, "Let's fucking put the ball in motion." And I was working out, and he came in, and we both started working out in my dressing room, and that conversation just happened, and then the managers got involved and kind of started putting together, and then next thing I know, Arch Enemy, Charlotte Falls, and I was like, "Wow, this is turning into a big fucking thing." And then we booked it thinking it was going to do good, and fucking it just exploded. It was massive.
Yep.
Massive tour.
From consumer perspective, it was like, sometimes like some people like circle download. That's like on the calendar. That's the weekend of the year. That's when they cut loose. That's their thing. And it's like a traditional, it's a staple of their being to be an anarchist that weekend. But when Black Crusade came about, we had a little blue pen, and we'd put that over there in November because we knew that was going to be an incredibly special day. And it delivered in fucking spades. And it should happen again. I'm sure everyone tells you that, but, you know, it's just one of those gigantic, and because I'm into live sound now, like I do gigs and stuff, so I understand the logistical fucking behemoth it must take to pull something like that off. So it's like a scale hitherto unknown.
Yeah, it was big. It was a lot. We had a lot of crew, a lot of things to coordinate, but it worked. It did fucking great, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, this is something I was going to mention at the beginning, but I completely forgot. As I have these conversations about Roadrunner, and we come to the end of like the Roadrunner independent life, I nick a term from you, and it's the Red Wedding, which is perfect. Absolutely perfect. No other fucking knows.
Now you're fast forwarding pretty far if you want to go to the Red Wedding.
I wanted to make Roadrunner United like its own thing, but I can do that first if you want.
Well, the Red Wedding Yeah, let's go chronologically because that would be. I
Maybe,
think Roadrunner United would have been before Blackening, even. Really.
yeah, it was 2005. So I'll open up with a question from my mate Alex, who says, "Why isn't the dagger part of the Machine Head set?" Because it's like it encapsulates everything brilliant about that period of sort of like mid 2000 metalcore for me personally, and I think the chops in Machine Head as it stands could definitely deliver on that.
Yeah, like we've actually been doing. I do the electric happy hours. Jared and I
Yes.
have been doing it at the electric happy hours. It's fun as fuck.
Yeah.
It's killer. It'll probably make a comeback now.
Yeah.
My former drummer couldn't play it, so like now I have a drummer who can play it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm
Yeah.
extremely happy about that. So tell me about the project itself. I think it's underappreciated how ambitious it was, because logistically getting like 4 musicians from different bands, different backgrounds, different schedules in a room is a fucking nightmare. So when Monty rings you up, presumably, is that how it happens? Does Monty ring you up and say, "You're a captain now. You are the captain now"?
He said, yeah, he rang me up and he said, "I want to make you the captain." And I was like, "No." I was like, "I've been on tour for 20 months. I'm fucking exhausted. Like I'm at my, I've still got 3 months of touring to go. I just had my first kid. Like this is not, I don't have the energy or the time to commit to this, let alone 4 songs to write to just give away to this shit." Yeah. And then he's just like, "All right." And then I think another month goes by and he calls me back. He's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this Roadrunner United thing." And I was like, "Dude," "I've been on tour for dude, I've been on tour for 20 fucking 1 months now and I'm exhausted and wiped out. My wife's about to divorce me. Like, I'm like, I've been gone forever. We just had a kid. Like, I need to just go home and not fuck around with some, I still got another Machine Head record to write." And he's like, "Okay." And then Dimebag got shot, and we had 2 or 3 more tour dates after, and I ended up getting this crazy sinus ear infection at the end of the tour. And this is, mind you, this is the end of an 80-day tour. I've been on tour for 80 days, literally around the world in 80 days. No exaggeration. Like I went from California to Japan to Australia to Europe. Now I'm going back to California. 80 days.
80 days.
I'm fucking wiped out. I'm losing my voice. I've get this brutal infection, and we're in Greece. The tour ends in Greece, and it's a long flight home. You got to go to Greece to Switzerland to the UK to back to California.
Right.
Greece to Switzerland. My fucking ear. It's like someone's jamming a screwdriver into my fucking ear. I can't even fucking think. I'm like, I've never felt pain like this. I have no idea what's going on. I'm freaking out. It's 3 a.m. I'm like, I'm fucking wiped out. And I get on the next plane and I say, "Hey, can I, everything was closed in the airport. It's like 3 a.m. And I asked the stewardess, "Hey, can I get some Sudafed or something? My ears are really my ear is killing me." She's like, "Your ears hurting? What's the matter?" I was like, "I just took another flight." I was like, "It really fucking hurts. Can you give me some aspirin or something?" She comes back. She goes away and she comes back and she's like, "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to get off the plane." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "I'm going to have," she comes up, now she gets all the fucking other stewards involved and like big old, I'm pissed. I'm like, what the fuck are you even talking? I'm going home. I've been on tour for 80 days. I'm going home. And the captain comes back. He's like, "Sir, please come up here to the cockpit and talk to me." And he's like, "If you fly, your eardrum's going to explode and you're not going to be able to hear out of it for 6 months." And I was like, "What?" And I'm like, he's like, "This is super common." He's like, it's an unsaid thing that we don't really talk about in the airline industry, but I'm guaranteeing you right now, your eardrum's going to explode and you won't be able to hear for 6 months. Dude, I'm fucking crying at this point. I'm like, all I want to do is go home. I'm fucking physically, mentally exhausted. Like, my friend just fucking got murdered on stage. It's horrible. Like, it's a horrible time. And so I got to grab all my shit. I get up. I go into Switzerland, and I'm just depressed. I'm just completely depressed. And I'm fucking can't see my wife and kid. And Monty calls me up. He's like, "Hey, I heard what happened," and he heard about what happened. So, yeah, and he's just like, but I wanted to bring up this Roadrunner United thing again. I'm like, you fucking dick. And he's just like, I'm like, so I listened to his spiel, and I don't, maybe just because of like where the headspace I was in or what I was at, but I was just like, I started having like, I write a lot of songs in my head, and then I was like, I had already started kind of formulating a song. It was the Dagger. I started formulating the riff for the Dagger, and I was like, you know what, dude, like, I think I could do it. I just felt like I needed to make music, like thing about, Dimebag and, just everything. I felt like I needed to make music and get music out. And I was like, I'll make time. And I talked to my wife about it, and she was like, yeah, I was like, it's a pretty big deal. Like making me a captain, like it seems like it's a pretty big deal. So I did it. And then I just said, I kind of started writing in mind, like who I wanted to sing. So, I was like, I'd like Howard, because I thought Howard was killer singer. I wanted Corey Taylor and Max. And then we had another song for the Army of the Sun. I didn't know who I wanted. So we went through a couple of singers, actually, and we had a couple different versions of that with their other songs. But then Tim Williams from Vision of Disorder ended up with that one.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was, I mean, more so than Monty, I would say Laura Richardson, who Colin Richardson's ex-wife, was the big coordinator of that. She was fucking amazing. Like there was so many people that were supposed to be on it and then dropped out, and then she had to fucking herd cats, and got I don't know how many fucking 75 different musicians to commit to doing solos and thises and thatses, and
it's still like a fucking killer. It's one of my favorite albums. It's so strange how like it's not an ancient industry. It's like in the recognizable format that it is, the industry is like 50 years old. Metal's 40 years old. And we all like the things that we love about metal are usually these arcs in particular bands. And then this fucking thing comes along, which sounds all in the way it's constructed, kind of feels like a party record, as if everyone just sort of like, get in here, let's do some songs. And it just comes out really well. And I don't know how many songs must have been left on the cutting room floor, but there must have been a few, because I can't imagine I think it's either 12 or 14 songs in total, and they're all fucking killer. There's not a bad song on that album.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote 4, so I don't know if anybody else wrote more, but I wrote 4 songs. That was nothing got left on the cutting room floor.
No, but it's fucking brilliant.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It was fun. It was fun doing it. I had a kind of a core band, and then I just brought in other people. Christian from Fear Factory was on there.
Yeah.
Andals from Chimera was my drummer, and then I had Jeff Waters from Annihilator do leads, and then I had the different singers. And the singers, Howard actually came out to Oakland to sing, so that was how that came about. Like, he was just supposed to sing it. I wasn't supposed to be on the record. I didn't want to sing on the record. I just wanted to write and kind of be behind the scenes. And as we were jamming, he's like, dude, let's fucking sing this together.
Are you surprised that people still sort of revere it today? I know I'm not alone. I know there's a lot of people who fucking love that record.
People love that record, dude. Like, fucking people love that record. Like, I mean, like every time I brought it up a couple times, I guess it was the 15-year anniversary last year or something, and I put up a little post about it, and fucking hell, like so many people went crazy on it. They were just like, fuck, I love that record. It's cool. It's very cool, because it's such a collaborative effort from so many people and so many different, different minds and different bands. And it's a really, I mean, maybe one of the most unique experiences I've ever done.
And it's just unorthodox. Mostly people celebrate label histories with just a party.
Right. Yeah, the show was cool too.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
Crowd was dead. Crowd sucked, but the fucking show was cool.
Free bar and whatnot.
Yeah, the crowd was just like, what am I watching? Like, I don't know this record very well. Like, fuck. Like tons of industry people. Like, it was fun though. It was a good time.
Did they even sell tickets to it? I've heard like sort of a bit left and right. Some tickets were sold, and there was some which were like, and it wasn't expected to be a sellout.
I don't know. No. I don't even remember.
Which is appropriate, I guess.
Given... Yeah. Oh my god, we got fucking hammered that night. And then I played Monty a bunch of Blackening demos. We all went back to my hotel and got even more drunk, and then I played Monty and Burvoy and a couple other Metal Hammer people and some other stuff. I played them some Blackening demos while we were shit-faced drunk.
What did Monty say then, if you remember, to those demos?
I think he was digging it. I played him Aesthetics of Hate. I just had like little I didn't even have a lot. I had like just like pieces of songs, pieces of like Beautiful Morning and some other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's I love the Blackening because there's suggestions from Ashes where that's going. There's suggestions that it's going to end up what it ends up as the Blackening, but it's such a refined piece. It's like it's almost like it's been written for 5 years, but you just took a fucking knife and cut the fat off it, and the only thing left was the substance. Was that expected? Did you expect it to go that way?
No, I mean we wrote. I mean I think the first 3 or 4 songs we wrote for the Blackening, we just ended up shit canning for no. I mean, just we tried to work on them and they just kind of went nowhere, and we're like, eh. And then the first 4 songs that ended up on the Blackening were the 4 shortest songs on the record. So, Aesthetics, Beautiful Morning, Slanderous, and Now Lay Thee Down.
Yeah.
So for the first 5 months that we wrote music for that record, and we probably wrote for 12 months.
Yeah.
There was no indication that we would have 10-minute long songs or like these songs that went on this, like it was all fairly like, straight ahead. And then Clenching came along, and then Halo came along, and then it was like the roller coaster, and that's when it was like, I think I don't even believe, we didn't even realize they were as long as they were. And then we timed them one day and we're like, 10 minutes? The fuck are we doing? Like, this is, I had a freak out. I was like, we got to trim the songs. This is ridiculous. Like fucking, we ended up trimming the songs back to like 6 minutes, and it just took it was like taking the loops out of a roller coaster. Like it wasn't as fun anymore. And I was like, well, let's see I hope people get this. Like there was a lot. Every time I watch an interview that I do from the Blackening era, I was like, I hope our fans get where we're going with this. Like, I don't know why we wrote 4 10-minute long songs, but here you go.
Monty, in your interview with him, he refers to like this era as shitting lightning for the second time. Is that fair? Do you think that's a fair assessment? Did it feel like that?
For sure, it did.
Yeah.
It was just a crazy like, renaissance. Like it was like Ashes, and then it went into fucking Roadrunner United, and then it went into Black. It was just like this crazy fucking run of like just success after success after success. It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is the point now with like towards the end of the Blackening era, the major label influence is going to get stronger because obviously there's the Warner acquisition, and then we're getting closer to Das Red Wedding.
Yes.
Why did he call it the Red Wedding? Where did that come from? I know it comes from Game of Thrones, but was it you that called it that, or was it like someone else?
I called it that. Yeah, I called it
all
that.
You.
It was the fucking Red Wedding. I mean, well, we did Locust, and Locust did great, and but that was our last record with them. So that was in the contract. So we were contractually done, and we started looking at other labels, and started putting the feelers out, like, hey, we're available, and we're not necessarily not into re-signing with Roadrunner, but by now this is like the 10th regime change that we've gone through, and I'm just like, I might be ready to start over somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna look, and I'm gonna really consider. My manager's doing all this. I keep on saying but like my manager's the one who does all this shit. I'm just like, and then he just passes it along to me. But my mindset was, I might be ready to move on to someplace.
Sure.
Like, but like, it's comfortable being at Roadrunner. That's kind of like my mindset at this point. And so the records, the album cycle's done, the tour cycle's done, the record contract's done, and we start meeting with people, and I get a great vibe from a lot of people. Really good vibe from tons of labels. And then we go and meet with Roadrunner, and I'm like, it just, we were ready to re-sign with Roadrunner. And we were getting through negotiations, and we're going through all the, it's fucking all this bullshit. Every fucking word's got to be, this takes forever. And we kind of get held up on this one little, I can't even remember what it was now, but it was a very minor thing. And like, man, they were just not budging on it. And it was something so stupid to me. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you know, it really started souring me towards the label because it was just such an unimportant thing, but they were just like fucking
gotta be this
digging their fucking, you know, and I was like, and then Michelle Kerr called me up and she said, dude, Roadrunner just fired 90 people. Wow. And I was like, she's like, they just closed every office in England, Netherlands, France, Germany. I was like, what? And then the news broke, you know, the news broke on Blabbermouth,
whatever it was
after that. And I was like, holy fucking shit. And then, you know, Monty calls me up and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that Roadrunners let me go. And I was like, what? Like, this is fucking insanity. Like, what the, why the fuck would they let you built that fucking label? Yep. You know, fuck Nickelback. Like, Monty Connor built that fucking label, you know?
And even if you didn't think that, Ron Berman, who signed Nickelback, he's also gone. So all angles.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, it was, dude, 90 people in one, I mean, just fucking decimated, closed every office. I mean, all those, I just named all those independent offices, those standalone offices, all gone now, you know, not gone at that moment, but, you know, like, we're going to close these. And I was like, whoa. And then the people from Roadrunner call me up. I think I want to say it was Dave Rath. And shout out to Dave Rath because I love Dave Rath. He's fucking great. You know, like I still talk to him and still love Dave Rath. But he calls me up. He's like, look, just sign the deal. Like, fucking everything's gonna be okay. And I'm like, everything's gonna be okay. Everything's not gonna be okay. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, dude. Fucking the brakes just got pulled, you know, like fucking we're slamming like on everything right here. Like, are you insane? He's like, look, we're gonna stabilize right now. And then, like, you know, Amy Schiaretto, who, like, you know, she was our publicity person there, she calls me up like, oh my god, I'm fine. Like, it was just insane. Like, all the, you know, I talked to everybody because there was so many long-term people there, Mark Palmer, you know, all these people.
The aftermath must have been fucking crazy. Like, did you play Download 2012, or am I misremembering that?
Yeah, we did.
So you must have been sat behind, because that was 2 months after the Red Wedding. Oh, I fucking love saying that to someone who knows what I mean.
Yeah, was it? Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I guess it was around May or something, right?
It's second weekend of June, so it was like 2 months after the Red Wedding takes place, and you must be stood behind the main stage with a bunch of other Roadrunner acts who are like, what's going on, boys? There must be some weird displacency.
So when did the Red Wedding happen?
April 2012.
Oh, April 2012. Okay,
yes,
so 2 months later we do Download. Yeah, totally. And we're all just like, what the fuck just happened? And we were already free. Like, we were like, we don't care. Yeah. Like, we're done. Like, we just happened to, it just lucked out that our contract ran out, you know, right around that time. And so, yeah, I just remember, you know, and then by that point, Download 2012, there had been a second and a third round.
Yeah.
So a second round of people, I want to say like 30 or 40 people got canned. And then another round where like another 15 to 20 people got canned. And the president was still there. And he's calling me up. And he's just like, it's going to be okay, Rob. Jonas Nash. And Jonas. And we were close. And I still like Jonas. I always like Jonas. But he's calling me up, just like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. The next thing I know, Jonas is fired, and I'm like, oh my god! Like, it just didn't stop. Like, you know, the one person, like, look, Rob, it's gonna be okay, and then fucking that person's gone now. I'm like, fucking Christ! It was crazy. I mean, it was really just like, it was the brutalest thing I'd ever seen in the music industry. Like, just fucking ruthless.
Did it feel like the end of an era as well? Because like this vehicle has been like
absolutely the end of an era. I mean, it was, I mean, that, you know, I mean, I'm probably romanticizing
as we do
this, you know, but like, honestly, the era ended way before the Red Wedding. You know what I mean? Like, there was so many other eras that had ended, and this was a new era that we were in, but it was already different by this point.
Yeah.
You know, what Roadrunner in 2012, when the Red Wedding happens, was nothing even remotely like the Roadrunner of 1994 when I go over to do my press tour. You know what I mean? Like, it was so many things had changed along the way. And it was probably almost inevitable. And I mean, what a run. What a fucking run. And not to, and Roadrunner's still going, sure. Like, they've got their thing, they're with Atlantic now, and it's, it's probably more in name only, but it's still a great name, and they still have a great catalog. But it felt like that, absolutely. It's just like, wow, this is never ever going to be the same. And at that point, Nuclear Blast was really smart, and cherry picked all the great Roadrunner people and brought them onto their record label, including Monty Connor, who then proceeded to sign me there.
Who keeps going on from strength to strength.
Yeah,
and that's it for the Roadrunner stuff, man. Is there anything I might have missed? Any like stories or any observations you may have made while I've been taking you down this memory lane?
I always enjoyed the Roadrunner Christmas parties. They used
Tell
to have
me everything about this. I've heard a few things.
They used to have them in New York. They were super fun. I mean, I think Joey Jordanson like banged some chick on like Case Wessel's desk one night, or Jonas's desk or something.
It is a strange thing to ask people, and I really appreciate you taking me like down your side of it. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting arc for an interesting label and an interesting vehicle that was incredibly disruptive.
No, it's great. I mean, it's great thinking of all that stuff, and I don't really talk about the business side of it very much, so I think that'll be kind of interesting for people to hear. Like certainly our record deal from 1994. Yeah, I mean, I consider myself lucky to have been part of Roadrunner Records. They invested millions of dollars into my band, and I'm forever grateful for it. I had to give up some stuff. I had to sacrifice some stuff. We had some ups and downs, but at the end of the day, they loaned me a shit ton of money to help build my band, and that's what I wanted them to do. Because they believed in my band, because they believed in the music, and because they believed in me. And, and I'm still here for some crazy reason, and we're still doing fucking amazing. And, I really owe them a debt of gratitude, because they really invested, just the touring alone. I don't even think a band could get the tour support that we got back then, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in tour support to just keep us on the road and sell records and, keep the ball moving and keep the band growing. And, I don't even know if labels do that kind of stuff anymore, and so I feel incredibly fortunate to have been part of that. And for all of the people that I was able to work with there was so many people, there's people that I'm forgetting, and, so many unsung heroes there that like made things happen that, you didn't even, you didn't even know, like people, Harlan was a big part of stuff back in the day, probably.
Harlan, what's his surname? Sorry.
What's his last name?
Is it Frey?
Yes.
Right.
Dude,
got it.
He fucking made a lot of shit happen. There was tons of people in the fucking, in the chain, wheels in the cog that made that Roadrunner machine fucking roll. And there's so many unsung heroes, and it was awesome. It was a great experience, and I'm still here, and I'm grateful to them for that.
I do. I absolutely appreciate it. Thanks very much for your time. It was really, there's all sorts in there that's giving me perspective.